Hello, everybody. I'm Jeromey Martini, president at Horizon College and Seminary, and I'm here with two of our alumni, our distinguished alumni. We're here with Jimmy Thunder and Andrew Thunder, and their last names are not coincidental. They are brothers, brothers by blood and brothers in the Lord. So great to have you two here, the Sons of Thunder, and we're here today. In response, I suppose is the right word, response, or in reaction to the horrific news coming out of Kamloops, the 215 children that are found buried there, and there's been a lot of media attention on that. Obviously, there's been a lot of Christian groups and others who are making responses to that. We made a small response, but really felt that we need to go beyond, I guess, a response, and we need to hear really something more about what do we do with this. We're left really wrestling, I think, as Christians, we're left wrestling with the question of not just making a response, but what do we need to do? What are next steps that we need to do? And in order to guide us to that, we really need to speak to people who can speak to those issues. It does no good for me to make a response, or I mean, obviously everybody's horrified or should be horrified by this, but what do we do with that? And so I've invited our alumni here. Both Jimmy and Andrew have, this is what they do. A lot of what they do is speaking about these sorts of issues, bringing reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples, and both are OG Cree Christians from Treaty 9 territory, Satchico Lake, Ontario, and coming out of there, Jimmy is serving our First Nations in Canada as a business advisor, and is a business officer, and he's founded Reconciliation Thunder. He's our adjunct faculty here. He teaches Indigenous ministries to our students as part of our curriculum, to have our students understand a little bit about some of what we'll hear today. Anyone graduating here to hear that. So he teaches that. Just wrapped up a course actually only a couple weeks ago, I think. So great to have Jimmy here. And Jimmy and Andrew, both after graduating from Horizon, both went on and earned MBAs. So they have sort of that business mindset. But Jimmy also founded Reconciliation Thunder, which is really it's not a Christian organization intentionally, right? To keep the conversation broader. But certainly Jimmy's coming to it with his own Christian convictions and perspectives, but really about bringing reconciliation among Indigenous, non-Indigenous. Andrew, also graduate, also MBA, is director of corporate responsibility at the Northwest Company, which is the largest private sector employer of Indigenous peoples in Canada, and there is. His main role is really to lead initiatives in relation to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC. He also does a lot of ministry up north with Indigenous communities, and so there's a lot of passion and a lot of knowledge in this question of reconciliation, and both Jimmy and Andrew do speaking on racism and reconciliation. I think Andrew, that's a massive part of your work. So we'll keep that in mind for anyone thinking about that at the end of this that might want to have someone come in and speak in your church or in your community about what does this mean for reconciliation. And we're doing that with churches. Both are volunteering in different capacities with the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada as well. And so that's who you guys are, and wanted to invite you because really, in response to this, as I'm out in the evangelical world in particular, I kind of see two polar the two loudest voices are two polar ends and probably feeding each other really to make them more and more polarized. On the one end, you get this knee-jerk reaction that says, "Hey, this wasn't us, right? This was we didn't have charter school. We didn't have these schools. It's not us. It's the Catholic Church, it's the Anglican Church. We have nothing to do with it. I'm not a racist. Don't paint me with a racist brush. I'm colorblind. Everybody's the same," and which doesn't really help because we are all distinct. We have distinctions, and it doesn't help to just erase all of those things. That's not really the solution, right? That we're looking for is to say I'm not racist, but basically this is not my responsibility. This is not my doing. And on the other side, we have probably also enabling or expanding kind of that reaction. We have the others who are that everything's about race. And we have, and especially in Christian circles, more and more taught, critical race theory, intersectionality, and which has its own ideological agendas and everything else. And we could spend time talking about these different poles or addressing these different poles, but really, I think that's just contributing maybe to the noise and the problem. We want to actually get away from that, and there's a mass in the middle, I think, that are feeling, look, this is just inhuman. I don't need to address either one of those. As a Christian, I just want to know, what do? I don't have a way forward. What do I do? And so we want to invite you guys to help guide us on that path. So ignoring those outer extremities, for maybe the most of us, to just say, this is just an inhuman thing. What do we need to do? So Andrew, Jimmy, what do you tell us? How do we go forward from something so dehumanizing and horrific as this? I'll put it over to you.
Yeah, I think that well, the very first thing is that we're solution oriented, right? That we're being pragmatic. We're identifying that a problem exists, that we want to solve it. So it's not about blame. It's about, how do we solve the problem? How do we do life together? How do we respectfully move forward with good relationships with each other? And I think even that acknowledgement is a barrier for a lot of people. And before we can even get into the discussion of a way forward, I think we have to recognize the complexity of the question and how big it is and how huge it is. When I started speaking on this issue, I wrote a poem called "Dear Younger Me," an open letter to my younger self. And it was supposed to be a summary of everything that I've learned from the time I was young until now about this, because there was a huge transition for me. And because I used to be on one of those ends of the spectrum that you described, just having this idea that, oh, that wasn't us, that was the Catholic Church. Or another iteration of that is that, oh, it's just bad people. It wasn't the church itself. It's just, there was just some bad people. And we have this really short, quick, simple answer to the problem. And really, I think that we have to go much deeper. And I think that the Kamloops discovery has really started to awaken this reflection in scripture, where when one part of the body hurts, we all suffer with it. And I think that we're starting to get there. And so you feel the hurt, but so how do you solve the problem? And yeah, it's an incredibly huge problem. And so when I wrote that "Dear Younger Me" poem, it was actually pages and pages and pages, and I summarized it down. And but what it is, it talks about all the things that you have to know. It's like you almost have to, in order to understand the problem, it's like you have to know about history. You have to know about Canadian history. You have to know about Canadian politics, how Canadian political institutions work. You have to know about nation-to-nation agreements. You have to, all of these different things, and then you take all of that, and then you use that to inform your Christian worldview. And it's a huge process. And I think the biggest barrier to that question is all the learning that needs to be done.
And that's really a significant piece to it. If we are looking at a solution to the problem or a pathway forward, we really do have to acknowledge the fact that there are specific barriers that ministry leaders and people who are just Christians in general, there's a lot of topics and areas where we're not necessarily comfortable having discussions in or delving deep into them. But I'm reminded of, for us, first and foremost, we get our example from Jesus himself, right? He showed his reconciliation by reconciling us to himself. And the manner in which he did that was he entered into our world, and he sought first to enter into our shoes, right? And he ate with us, he drank with us, he experienced pain with us, and he laughed with us, and he wept with us, right? And you look at that, and really that is our approach to reaching other people groups, is to having that willingness to become vulnerable, to the point where it may be a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit painful to do so. And that's what we as a church are called to do right now with Indigenous peoples. So it's important for us to recognize that that is a barrier, right? The comfort, but also, as Jimmy was saying, as pastors and ministry leaders, we may not even be comfortable with having these types of conversations because it's difficult. In fact, it's impossible to talk about reconciliation without having a good understanding of history, right, and having discussions on history, as well as policy changes, and even the nation-to-nation relationship between Indigenous peoples and Canada, right? And so it's a brand new conversations, brand new topics that need to be had, and that's why we're here today, is to talk a little bit about that, and hopefully we can address some of these barriers and make things a little bit clearer on the pathway forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's not typical. You go to church and hear the whole history of, like this isn't a new thing, right? Like this discovery is actually old, right? This has just come to light now, but even before then, it really represents decades and decades and decades of interactions. Like this is the effect, not the cause. And so we sometimes just fixate on this and don't realize really this has been going on by action and, importantly, inaction, because being silent about things for a long time is itself some complicity in that, right? So not to just say, oh, it wasn't us, but we knew this was going on and didn't say anything and didn't do anything and didn't recognize this in humanity. So there's these barriers, right? And so I hear you say part of the barrier is just knowledge. Like we just are oblivious to so much, and I'm oblivious to. That's why I don't feel right about making a statement or something, because I don't know enough. I don't know enough to give an informed statement. So that's one of the main areas. And any other barriers or anything you see when you try to bring about reconciliation in groups?
Yes, one of them is some knowledge that we talked about, and then so related to that is the relationships. Like I think that a lot of times relationships are they don't have the depth that you need in order to have some of these really difficult solutions. The discussing of the skeletons in our closets, and in the class I talk about ideology-based homophily, where we might be friends, but we don't stick outside of our sort of political and our different ideologies. And so we need to move beyond that, and we really need to listen to Indigenous voices, and we have a lot of tools to help us with that. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they went all across Canada collecting hundreds and thousands of voices and putting it together in our big Truth and Reconciliation Commission final report. It's over 4,000 pages. And very similar to that, earlier we had the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples. The same idea. We traveled all across Canada collecting all of these Indigenous voices, and you have their input, and so you can start to see things from the Indigenous perspective. So all of this is out there, but these tools are out there, but without those relationships, a lot of people don't even know that RCAP exists, or that the TRC final report exists, or that those types of things.
Right. And I know you assigned some the Royal Commission. You signed some of that, and the big document is what is it, like 4,000 pages or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a highlight version, right? And we can actually put links to these things here on our.
That's right. I assigned the highlights of the Royal Commission report on Aboriginal peoples to one of the students, and they went to the main document, so they thought they had 4,000 pages of reading to do for the course.
Right.
Yeah. And the highlights is actually a really good document because it really outlines, it provides a good narrative of the relationship between Indigenous peoples in Canada and settlers. And it's important for us to have a really good informed understanding of that history before we even engage in any topics related to Indigenous issues, because really we need to understand the root cause before we start looking at just surface issues. Because the other issue is that unfortunately, we as humans, we're very quick to come up with solutions. We're really quick to formulating our opinions on things. But for us as Christians and as believers, we have to be lovers of truth, and we need to listen to the truth, and in order for us to have informed opinions on these things. And really that's the key. So listening, just as the word says, be quick to listen and slow to speak.
Right, which is what we're hoping to do here with you guys, and we don't want to just make this a one-off kind of a conversation. So in fact, along with this video, we're releasing the first of many blog posts, so some more writing, and then we want to invite people to ask questions, and we'll have an email address here to send questions. We're not going to do it public because it tends to attract those people on those two polls, and I'm not patient enough with it. My ethnicity is Italian, which is can get a little fired up, and I just don't have patience for that type of stuff. But we want to invite legitimate questions and engagement, and have that inform some of the ongoing blogs and ongoing videos as a response to this. So we'll have that as an option, and keep it going. So we can't solve everything in this video. I know just one thing I want to just throw out, because we talked before about this, and I don't know when you spoke in chapel as well, Jimmy, if it was last year, I think, but the concept of treaty, because that's something that as Christians we should get, where God made a covenant relation. We have the Old Testament, which is the Old Covenant, and the New Testament, the New Covenant, and a covenant is not one-sided, right? A covenant is a relational agreement between two parties, right? So when we hear about treaty rights, and we hear so much about the treaty, so much is focused on what are First Nations or Indigenous wanting, or the treaty side, but the treaty is a two-part. Maybe just give a little bit on that, because that's a really important, I think, concept for us to grasp.
Yeah, absolutely. The Treaty Relations Commission of Manitoba and the Office of the Treaty Commissioner use the phrase, "We are all treaty people," because we're all descended from nations that made treaties with each other. So and the treaties benefit both sides. It's just sometimes we forget that, oh yeah, we're beneficiaries of the treaty too, just in different ways. And so when we think about treaties, especially from the Indigenous perspective, when you look at Indigenous law, a lot of what is binding in Indigenous law is the sense of sacredness and the sense of connection to the Creator. Indigenous law is very spiritual, and when you look at it from that lens. And so, and of course, so much so when you talk about treaties, a lot of times when you have treaties, even pre-contact treaties between Indigenous nations, the treaties were always designed to be mutually beneficial. I'll hunt here and you can, use this and that kind of thing. They're always beneficial. When you think of, like, for example, the dish with one spoon treaty in what's present day Ontario with the Haudenosaunee, it's an agreement to share the land amongst themselves. One dish, one spoon, and you just take turns using the spoon. And so this gives you an example of what treaties are supposed to be. They're supposed to be where we help each other. And the other thing too is that in the case with the dish with one spoon treaty, it's symbolized by a belt. It's a physical object. And so it's not the terms that really matter, it's the relationship. And it's a connectionship. And it's also the connection with the creator, because a lot of times there would be ceremonies involved, you know, for example, a pipe ceremony where you get together and you discuss the terms of the treaty extensively, and you talk, and then you pass the pipe around, you burn the tobacco. The sacred tobacco carries the conversation up to the creator. And so in that way, it's a tripartite agreement. It's between the two parties and the creator. And the creator is what binds the treaty. And you revisit the treaty, you know, each year as long as you need, and you could change the terms as long as both parties are in agreement. And so it's a relationship, it's helping each other. And
right. And yeah. I could see, you know, I could see some of our Christian audience getting, you know, oh no, we're talking about some type of spirituality, as though a legal document in a secular, you know, dealing with lawyers is somehow a sacred or a spiritual thing, and you know, as though traditional, you know, or whatever, not traditional, new modern legalese is somehow a spiritual thing, that okay, well, it's okay for us to enter into a legal contract, but oh well, this thing here, this now sounds like we're getting into something that's not Christian spirituality. Well, you know, I'm sorry, but the we love our lawyer friends, but there's nothing sacred about the Canadian legal system that does this. So what we're really talking about still is two types of systems that really just, when it comes down to it, we've entered into some type of moral agreement as peoples that we are to honor in a relationship. And so again, I'm thinking of those on sort of different extremes, maybe wanting to go push these into different directions. But this is so we don't want to get distracted by that, is what I'm trying to say, right?
I think that's an important piece to it, though, is really pinpointing at what point did this relationship get broken, and really that's why the discussion of treaties has to be had, because prior to in the early 1500s, when the settlers first came to Canada, there were a lot of agreements. There was a lot of harmony between the two parties, with trade, with even military alliances and intermarriage. But what happened over time is, just as you were saying, Jeremy, is that there was issues with the interpretation of some of those treaties that were happening, and particularly the definition of protection. Right, the Royal Proclamation came about as a way to protect the lands of Indigenous peoples, and to ensure that settlers weren't taking advantage of Indigenous peoples. And so, there was means, there was a way policies were put in place in order to protect them. But over time, what happened is our legal friends decided to reinterpret protection as a way to allow further Indigenous settlement to overpower Indigenous. As the settler population increased beyond that of Indigenous people, they would say that they were protecting Indigenous people from European economic development, and in the process taking away lands rich in resources, and among other things, right? And so you begin to, understanding that allows you to see a little bit more about why is the economies within certain Indigenous communities not where they are today, and it also gives you an idea a little bit of the socioeconomic disparities within history, right? And this all comes into play, right? So right. That's the importance of understanding the history and understanding treaties.
So I think we're at the tip of an iceberg here, right? And we want to unpack this over, because we can't do justice to this in one video, but we want to introduce some of the complexities and some of the challenges, and maybe really introduce why we need to be cautious against making really a quick quick judgment and a quick solution, because the issues are complex and need to be understood if we're going to have a response. But just to get us back onto the track of the with the Kamloops discovery, and again, ignoring those extremes, but saying, for the bulk of us in the middle, just saying, what do I do? Like, and for those of us who are Christians, saying, like, this is horrific. This goes against everything that any sensible Christian would, like, no sensible Christian is going to defend this type of atrocity as legitimate. What do we do? So what are some, what are some early stage things that you might suggest? What are some first steps you might guide us? What type of path can you set us on? And not looking for we're not looking for a quick knee-jerk solution, but set us on a path. Like, what are some things we can start to do now in response to this?
I think the key thing is to recognize all the work that's been done up until this point. All of the conversations and the dialogues and the research that's been done, and the leading voices on that conversation is the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And so the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they gave us a 10-volume report. And for those who didn't want to read those 4,000 pages, they gave us an executive summary. And even for those who would struggle with reading that, they give us 94 calls to action. And so with these 94 calls to action, we can read those. They're in little booklets. They're very accessible, and everybody can start to explore, what is my call to action? What can I begin to do? And if everybody was to do their part, then everything, like, we would begin to move forward together as a nation. We need to all work towards, solving this problem together.
Right.
I think it's important for us to really recognize as well what is our responsibility as Christians, as believers, in hearing this news, right? And Jesus himself, he provided great examples of where he understood, and he wept with those who were weeping, right? And he showed this divine love to the people that were suffering and experiencing injustices. When the news first came about, we've seen a lot of different reactions on social media. Some of them many were very concerned, very sympathetic, and very hurt from this. Many Indigenous people phoned me up and said that they're having trouble sleeping for weeks after this discovery, right? And many are in tears. Many are just questioning so many things right now, right? And so there's a state of pain, but particularly it's felt among Canadians, but particularly among Indigenous individuals, right? And the question that we need to ask ourselves is how does God want us to respond to this? And a key to that, as Jimmy mentioned, is listening. Are we listening? If you don't have Indigenous congregants within your church, there are all these resources that are available, and they have been available for some time now. We encourage you to read them, to access them as a way to listen to the voices of the many people who have gone through this process of collecting this information.
And I think that one of the things that we're doing, so Reconciliation Thunder is partnering with Circles for Reconciliation, and what we're doing is we're doing a social media campaign that's simple but profound. We're doing 94 calls in 94 days, and that's going to kick off starting on Indigenous Peoples Day. And so every day we're going to be posting one of the 94 calls to action, and the challenge is for everybody to follow our pages and to read it and to reflect on it, and then in doing so to share it. Because here's the thing, we're at a stage in our history where so many Canadians don't even know what the 94 calls to action are. Maybe they haven't read them. And the thing is, even if you've read them, like, do you know the history behind and the research behind why we got to these particular 94? And so this campaign is just getting people to take that first step, to jump into the boat and to solve the two problems that we talked about in this video. One is that information gap, getting that information, stirred up in our groups. Secondly is to facilitate the building of relationships. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be continuing a campaign where we're going to be sharing additional videos and blog posts and as a group at Horizon. So Reconciliation Thunder and Circles for Reconciliation, we're going to be having this campaign, but in tandem with this campaign, Horizon is going to be doing a similar campaign as well along the same timelines.
Yeah, and that's good. And so we will have here, and I've got to wrap this up here, but we will have here opportunity here to send your questions here to have a designated email here to send some questions to, and then this can inform some of the ongoing blog and videos that are going to be coming out, and we will have links here as well to the number of the resources that you've mentioned. A lot of these are just publicly available resources here, so have links to those, and invite your questions. We also, you have your Reconciliation Thunder is a resource as well that can be accessed, and Andrew, I know you do a lot of speaking. We're trusting that COVID is going to be releasing us here soon from restrictions and more opportunities, but certainly are available to do seminar speaking. Jimmy, you've got your course that we offer here as well every year, and yeah, I think this is just this is a big question, and I think it was Andrew you said earlier, we want to get beyond a statement. Just how do we actually set on a path here that can lead us, and I'm obstinately ignoring those two extremes, just deliberately not engaging with them. They don't exist, and focusing on the rest of us who just say genuinely, how do we walk? Set us on a path. We want to, and we just don't know what to do. And we just want to thank you for starting us on that and for helping us to make that journey as a path, and look forward to hearing from you and further blog posts and videos going forward. And thank you for your work. Thank you for your willingness to help lead us.
Yeah, for sure.
And thank you, Jeremy, for taking the initiative here in Horizon College and Seminary, for just responding to this and taking the opportunity to continue these conversations and important conversations that are to be had.
For sure. And I just want to thank everybody watching this, and we just want to encourage you to continue to engage in the conversation. There's going to be more videos coming, and it's going to be based off of the questions that you send to us. So send questions to that email. We'll respond in our blog posts. We'll respond in future videos, and we want to make this really interactive. And so we want to really take this opportunity to really engage on a heart level and on a faith level. And so, yeah, thank you very much for following this video and for following us through this conversation.
Yep, thank you. So God bless, and we'll connect with you and our next first blog post available now, and you can keep following us on this. So thank you. God bless. See you soon.